The first thing we want to talk about is, we were talking about this earlier, has music arrived at its new Napster moment? Ho-chan.
I have to admit, back in year 2000, I downloaded the whole Radiohead new album, Kid A, on Napster. Yeah, even before it was released.
So just to go around the room, how many people have actually used Napster? Please raise your hand. So about half. So the other half of you, I recommend Spotify. But for the other half of you, this might be exciting.
But I also bought more than 3 or 5 copies of the physical CD. So
right.
Yeah.
So in what ways does what's happening with generative AI, especially like in the last 6 months?
I think in year 2000, the old Napster moment was about access to music. So it's the revolution on the demand side. Mm-hmm. But this time of Gen AI, the new Napster moment is about the supply side. So it's going to be a revolution of creativity and music production.
So you're saying, in some ways, generative AI is going to accelerate the output of music?
The output and the way of making music.
And as a musician yourself, how do you view AI? Like, did you first view it as a threat, or like how did you react to it?
Right now, I use it as a tools. For example, I use Sunos or Udio to generate some melodies and arrangement for inspiration. So I think it's an incredible tool for productivity of music production.
Right.
But I think we're all talking about if AI will replace human, right? In 10 years, I'm not sure.
What about 10 minutes?
but right now, I think if you don't use AI, you'll lose a lot of opportunities.
So you're saying it's highly likely that people who use AI will probably replace people who don't use AI.
Yes,
and
for now.
Musicians who use AI. Okay. Well, and maybe Tyler and Reggie, like, how do you view this so-called Napster moment 2.0? Because we were talking about it earlier, like, you know, like at the beginning of any technological revolution, people get excited, and you know, there's maybe a little bit of chaos. Yeah, you know, it's a little uncomfortable. Some rules are broken. You know, some people break glass over the place. But I feel like that's almost necessary, like to get there. In fact, sometimes you need to kind of survive a couple of lawsuits to kind of let people see what that promise of that technology is. So maybe you could kind of share your thoughts quickly.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with it being more on the supply side right now, and I don't know if it's quite a Napster moment yet. Like, when Napster was really at its peak, it was everywhere. Yeah. Like, it was just top of everyone's mind. I don't think AI-generated music is quite there yet. Like, it's not hitting the top of the billboards or the Spotify lists, but I do think what we're seeing is that AI is really enabling much more productivity, more creativity, and the tools are only getting better. So I think we're kind of building up right now, and we're at the forefront of this moment where it is going to become this thing that we can't ignore anymore, and we have to think about, like with Napster, what's the regulation? How do people get paid? If you put your data in, should you get paid for that? What's the rights to that? And I think the sooner we think about that, the better it will be for everybody, because otherwise we're going to end up in this moment where it feels like chaos, and not super clean.
And I do want to get to that after that, which is, you know, about the amount of data that needs to go in and how we govern that. But Reggie and yourself, you know, Alias does, you know, digital avatars, and with your experience as a musician yourself, how do you view this moment?
Yeah, so I'm very familiar with like Napster, email, MIRC. Like Sorry, I was saying, yeah, I'm quite familiar with Napster, LimeWire, email, even MIRC, because I live in a very small, remote part of Australia where I didn't have access to music. I had to go to the record, like the CD store, Sanity, and put a mail order in to hear a metal album or Aphex Twin. But when I went onto MIRC or Napster, I could find all that music that I couldn't have access to. But now I think with AI, in a similar way, instead of the distribution side, we're seeing the creativity side, the creation side. And to me, I see it almost similar to, as a music producer, trying to make an entire song by myself, every single sample, recording it, to like loops. You know, it's almost augmented my music production, and I think AI has come in to augment people with their creativity, and things like Gen AI just makes it a lot more accessible. It democratizes some of the process, and yeah, echoing your point, we just need to figure out, now that the cat is well and truly out of the bag and it's running down the street, how do we make it equitable? How do we make sure that the data that's being trained on from the artists or the musicians or the singers, there is some pipeline that they can see some of this revenue share and royalties?
Right, so I want to just segue into that, because I think much of what is talked about today is this issue with, you know, data and whose data is being used to train. You know, I mean, lawsuits are being filed against, you know, OpenAI, but at the same time, strategic partnerships are also being made. So, first of all, and maybe, Tyler, you can enlighten us, like, for a language model to actually be useful or meaningful, you know, in a very good way, like Suno's magical to me, and I've been producing music for 25 years with absolutely no music theory experience. I could do it by a year, but it's fascinating. But how much data actually needs to go into these language models for it to be, you know, like to hit that scaling law, or what I've pretended to kind of know?
Yeah, turns out you can't have too much, which is basically what OpenAI figured out. Was they just threw the world's data at these large language models, and I think even with music, where it's maybe even more complex and nuanced, the more data you can have, the better. And what we've also found, though, is you don't necessarily have to have that for your tuning of it. So if you can get access to a already built large language model or music model that has been trained on a significant amount of data, you can then add maybe your voice, which is how they do this voice generation for your voice, is they just tune it from that base. And so I think that the starting needs a ridiculous amount of data, which is where we've gotten to now, but then we can start to adapt it with less and less data, even to the point now where I hear like 10 seconds of someone's voice now, you can take that and then train a model on, which is pretty crazy, and you should be careful with who you talk to.
I tried a karaoke AI app last week, something like that. So I think the foundational models already exist. So there's obviously, like, this feels to me like another, you know, like a mobile iOS moment, then, where, you know, people are going to have easy access to these foundational models and build all kinds of startups. Is it fair to say that maybe, like, everyone has access to pretty much the same technology, but then integration becomes a differentiation or an advantage?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, integration's an advantage. I really think of it like a utility, like the internet. When the internet came out, a bunch of companies tried to figure out what to do with it, right? And some of them succeeded, some of them didn't. We had the big internet boom and bust, right? We're kind of in the same place. And if we think about music, it's in this place where there are people figuring it out. And, you know, to your point earlier, the people that are figuring it out faster, I think, are going to have more success. Right. I don't think that means just throw AI at something and then hope that that gets you a top song. No, it means figuring out how to use it as a tool, integrate it into your process, into your creativity, into your audience, into your community. And the people that really figure that out are going to be like superhumans, because they have these tools that really set them apart in their ability to be creative. And so I think that that's what's going to be the differentiator. It's not the tools. To your point, everyone has the same tools now. Yeah. But how do you use them? How do you integrate them? Right. How do you make creativity with them? Is going to be the differentiator.
I've recently become addicted to Suno, and I work as an investor by day, and I produce by weekend. And recently I've started a little project of my own where I'm working on an EP, and I have 3 songs completely entirely generated by me prompting Suno that actually sound really good, that I've actually stopped listening to Spotify. And I'm, you know, like, my Suno songs are in my iTunes playlist now. But yeah, so Po Zhang, maybe you can share with us a little bit about what you're doing at Song Protocol, and and how you're trying to, create more security.
Because
for
right
our
now the
content.
AI company is advocating for openness, right? They want the content owners to open their data for training.
Right.
But for the labels or the IP owners, they want to protect their rights. I think it needs time to solve this, but at the moment, the benefit of openness is proved by the software industry. So the open source movement and the culture in the software industry actually push the whole industry moving forward very, very fast. So I think that's something we can learn from them as a music industry people. So Creative Commons, they try to copy the open source culture to the creative industry. But I think not everyone in the industry are willing to embrace that you give away your content for free and for the greater good, right? So I think another thing we can learn from the software industry is that they have this predefined and front-loaded license. So it will make licensing more efficient, and you can avoid a lot of manual negotiation, take 3 months to license a song. Yeah, everything is clearly front-loaded. So if we want to fulfill the needs in the AI age, it's gonna be filled by AI with a lot of new content creators. We need a new IP infrastructure. So besides to automate the licensing to make it more efficient, at the same time, we need to have a mechanism to safeguard the rights of the creators. That's what we're doing right now.
Collaborating with anyone in the music industry right now is like about 100 emails in 6 months to just clear something, and the inefficiencies of that is just really bad for creativity. But we were also talking earlier about the collaboration economy and that growing as part of the greater creator economy. Reggie, how do you see AI coming into this, like whether it's in the form of language models or different new types of tools?
Yeah, so in a couple of ways. I think that the creator economy was really focused on the individual creator. And we saw through different periods of the last 20 years that a product would come on that would democratize the creation process, but also usually partnered with a platform that helps distribute that content to everyone. We saw it with music, with Ableton and SoundCloud. We've seen it with Instagram filters and TikTok and YouTube. And now, now we have this society which is actually pretty well skilled in creating things. So I believe that the next phase of the creator economy will be this evolved collaborator economy where the creator and the fan can start co-creating. So when you're a creator, you can actually look into your audience to do stuff with you, make stuff with you, and then possibly share the creations with them. So a good example of this that we saw earlier, I think it was last year, was Grimes, where she just gave out her voice model and anybody could create with it, and then she would share the revenue splits with the creator. So I think AI can be a tool to help the creator expand their IP, offer opportunities to co-create with their audience, which I think are, especially the younger generations, incredibly creative, and they just need an outlet to be able to express themselves. But then also AI is a tool for collaborating on an individual level. So like whether that's with ChatGPT or some other LLM, the creator can actually riff, right? Ideate, collaborate with that model to come up with ideas, visuals, music, whatever it might be, before it goes out and is released into the world. So AI, again, just kind of echoing my original point, is just like, it's augmented the process, but hopefully it's opening up more opportunities for that co-creation. We just need that system in place on how to make it fair.
It's almost, it's not the main dish, but it's like a side, maybe like a topping or a sauce. That
hot sauce.
Yeah, that makes it a little tastier. Well, you were talking about fans and artists collaborating. So a couple years ago, and I won't mention names, I was asking a friend of mine who works in a company that manages K-pop boy band A, and obviously in recent times K-pop boy band B has become internationally famous. And I said, you know, like, how did that happen? And I think what I understood was K-pop boy band B's strategy was actually to really let the artists directly engage with the fans, whereas, you know, even traditionally in Mandopop or whatever the industries that we work in, there's a tendency to kind of keep a distance. You know, I'm a celebrity, I'm an artist, and you're a fan, and there's that distance. But I feel like AI and a lot of new technologies, and maybe we've already been trained that over the last 20 years watching this read, write, you know, social media culture, it's kind of brought us a lot closer to each other. So it almost feels like AI is that accelerant now that's going to even make it more exciting. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are, maybe Tyler, Bo-sang, or maybe how that's happening in your work.
Yeah, I think it is interesting, the kind of overlap between fans and creators. So, like at Ben Labs, one of the things we really think about is what we kind of call this consensus triangle, where you've got like an audience and a creator, and we throw in the brand as well, because we work a lot with brands, and generally things work really well when all of them align. So you want the audience to be engaged with the creator, and the creator making things that the audience cares about, because it is like a symbiotic relationship. The audience gets a lot of enjoyment, and the creator gets money, right? And you need those two things to work out. And so I think that as they merge, they can both get better. Kind of to your point, if the artist is doing things with the community, it's much higher that the community will pay for that, enjoy that thing. And if the community is engaging with the artist, they'll probably have a stronger affinity with that artist. And so I do think AI can actually help a lot with that. I mean, we've been talking a lot about AI in the sense of generating content, but AI can also help with personalization. I think there's a world in which music scenes or concerts become very personalized. You can imagine a set list for a band, and they're up there playing, and there's some kind of AI watching the crowd, seeing what they're getting into, and then kicking back to the backstage people and saying, hey, this isn't working, revise the set list to hit this song next, or go to that song, and really have much more of a personalized experience to the audience. And if you take that into the virtual world, it can get even crazier, right? With like generative in real time, maybe, with what the audience is doing, real-time collaboration. And so AI, I don't think, is just going to be used to create music or content. It's also going to be used to personalize and bring things closer to what people care about in that moment, because every audience is unique and they want that experience now. Definitely the expectation is personalization. Netflix, YouTube, Spotify, everything you're doing is personalized to you. I think AI can bring that to like live events as well.
Absolutely. Personalization is, I've just become so used to it. Sorry.
No. I think with Gen AI, everyone can be a creator. Yeah. Very in the very near future. So we can foresee that we'll have 1 billion creators maybe in the next 5 or even 3 years.
So everybody in this room is essentially going to be able to be a musician.
For example, one of the top producers that I know, they are producing a new album for very popular artists in Taiwan. So basically, all the songs in that album will be made by Suno. So they have stopped looking for publisher for new songs because they don't really need to.
That's, well.
But now it's still just for the producers. But for everyone in the room, I believe we all have very good music taste, right? So with just several prompts, we can make a song very soon. By the time, the challenge for artists and creators is not creating content, it's how to build a community and a loyal fan base. Yeah, that's the real challenge for the artists in the future. So the ability depends on each different individual. But I think we can use AI to to create a better experience. For example, they can collaborate with each other. We are running a campaign with a Japanese artist, just like Grimes did. So he's gonna open his AI models for all his fans to create a rap verse. And then he'll pick several verses he liked and create a new song, put it on Spotify, share all the royalty back to the fans on the blockchain. So I think it's time to transform your fans from consumer into partners. You can do a lot of things together, and at the same time, the fans can get reward.
Right.
So we can also transform the fan community from only information network into a value network. Yeah, that's what I see.
Okay. Well, I think that one of the things I've noticed too, having used ChatGPT religiously and almost addictively for over a year and a half now, is the amount of time I spend on a task is still the same, right? But just the quality has improved drastically, and I think that's another way to look at it. Rather than is this technology going to replace us? And I recently came to know about this thing called the pessimism aversion trap, which I think a lot of the music industry has fallen into right now. And this was from a book by Mustafa Sulaiman, who is the CEO of Microsoft AI. And that is basically saying that we have a tendency to avoid dark scenarios despite knowing the benefits that it will bring. And I think while the music industry is still kind of, either having, a blackout and not being able to talk about this, or lawsuits are flying around, I think there's a generation of young Gen Z creators who grew up digital natives on the internet, and I think none of this is new to them, right? They grew up on filters as a kid, so obviously having pseudo to make music is going to be very natural. So I think we should welcome this, and rather, like we mentioned earlier, rather is to contribute to building the infrastructure of a new creative economy, right? Okay, well, I think that puts us at about time, and I don't want to hold everybody back because we do have another exciting last speaker coming up, and I'm actually pretty excited to hear a bit about that myself before everybody goes off for drinks. So thank you very much today, and if there are any questions, we'll still be hanging around outside in the lobby. So thank you very much, everyone.